All right. Well, welcome everyone to our, I think might be first ever USTA New England Grants and Scholarships webinar. We really wanted to utilize this opportunity to give folks within the community, whether you're a park and rec agency, your community tennis association, a parent, a coach, an NJTL, which I know we have some representatives here on the call today, to allow you to get an understanding of the funding opportunities, not only at the section level, but also we'll briefly be talking about the opportunities that are available at the state association level, as well as the national level, both from the USTA Foundation and also the USTA National Office. So really happy to have you here. Thank you so much for being organizers and facilitators of play in your communities. You all play a part in the mission of our organization. And as you could see in the last slide, tennis is booming. And we have over 1.1 million people playing tennis, 1 million mark for the first time, which is an exciting milestone for New England, especially considering the weather climates that we deal with. So before we get started, I just want to introduce the speakers today. Firstly, I'm Lindsey Keeler. I'm the Executive Director and CEO for USTA New England. Just a little over a year that I've been here within the organization, but I've been with USTA for 14 years.
Thanks, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. I'm Shauna Forbes. I'm the Director of Player Development for USTA New England, and I oversee the adult and junior competition pathways.
Hi, everyone. Mabi Sanchez-Keiko. I'm the Head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It's really great to see so many friendly faces and some new faces. So I look forward to supporting you as you put together some of your programs for the coming months.
So just to give you a quick run through of what we'll be talking about today, we'll be going through a quick overview of state association grant opportunities. There are 7 state associations in New England, so depending on where your organization is located, you can find the right opportunity for you to consider. Then we'll be talking about section funding opportunities. We'll first explore our community spending rule grant. Then Shauna will provide some information around our youth scholarships and reduced entry fee program. And we'll also give some highlights, really high-level highlights of some successful grant applications that we've received in the past. And then we'll share national grant funding opportunities that are available. And then we'll open it up for quick Q&A and answer any questions that you might have. But you can also email volunteer@newengland.usta.com if you have any questions after you leave the call today. Okay, so first up are our state association grant opportunities. We have Connecticut, Eastern Mass, Maine, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Western Mass. So you can use this time if you want to take out your phone and find the right region for you. This will take you directly to the landing page for information around state association grants. They all are a little bit different, but they provide funding across the gamut of themes, from junior team tennis to equipment grants to transportation grants. More detailed information is on each of their sites, but they range from small dollar amounts of $500 all the way up to, in some instances, $1,000 maximums, which you can see for Maine, $2,000 maximums for Eastern Mass, and Connecticut up to $5,000. So we will put in an email to all those that registered a quick overview of these opportunities so that you can have them accessible, but each of these QR codes will take you directly to their landing pages. Most of them have rolling applications. With the exception of Eastern Mass, they review applications as they receive them, but they have a deadline of December 1st of this year to be considered for a 2023 grant opportunity. What I will say is the states, and we actually have Joanna, who is president of Vermont on this call, are really eager to support and give funding to worthy organizations that have great initiatives that they want to either expand on or launch, whether you've delivered tennis before or you've been delivering tennis for the last 20 years. So highly encourage you to explore those opportunities and consider applying. And then if you're based in Western Mass, here is the QR code for Western Mass. But like I said, we'll put this in an email, and so you all have direct access to these landing pages. Okay, so now going into the section grants. Our first will be around the community spending rule. I wanted to highlight some of the eligibility requirements just so you know what to expect in terms of being eligible for funding. The first is that applicants must be a charitable nonprofit organization as designated by the IRS. You don't have to be a 501c3, but you do have to be a charitable nonprofit. You need to be a government entity. So if you're a municipality or a school, you are eligible to apply. Anyone that is part of a for-profit entity is welcome to apply in partnership with a nonprofit organization. So if you're a nonprofit that maybe doesn't have tennis courts, but you want to apply in tandem with a commercial club, or vice versa, you're a commercial club that wants to continue to make your facility more accessible, you can partner with a charitable nonprofit to be eligible. The second requirement is you have to be a USTA organizational member. And the great part of that is it's free to be a member. I include the link membership.usta.com. It's a quick process, but it's an important way for us to ensure you're connected to the USTA New England and USTA ecosystem as an organization, and you can get information around what's happening within the tennis ecosystem. And then third, if you're working with youth, your staff and volunteers must be Safe Play approved. This is a non-negotiable. It's extremely important for us within the USTA, for any of our community stakeholders that are working with children and with youth, go through the training and free background screening that Safe Play provides. And there's more information via the link here, USTA.com. If you Google USTA.com Safe Play, information will come up. It's a 90-minute training overall that you have to do once a year, and then a brief background screen in order to be fully Safe Play compliant. If you're not working with youth, it's not a requirement, but we always encourage it because the training is really informative and helpful, whether you're working with youth or not. And then number 4, you need to have a broad base of community support and meet a compelling need in the community. That's a pretty wide scope, but through your application and your submitted application, that will really allow you to showcase the community support and need that you have for the initiative or the program that you're in need of funding for. And then lastly, aligning with the section's focus on player engagement and retention, coach recruitment and engagement, and public facility infrastructure. Priority will be given to organizations that have an emphasis on new and diverse players that reach underserved communities. But if you are in a more established community, or I know there are regions of New England that sometimes are not as diverse as others. It's just a part of the process that the Spending Rule Committee considers when they're reviewing applications. I don't see any questions in the chat, but those are just the 5 main eligibility requirements. And so you'll need to meet all of those parameters in order to be fully considered. Okay. So this group is getting some sneak peek information hot off the press. This will be going live on our website in the next few weeks, but we are moving to having application cycles so that the committee that reviews these applications, which is done by volunteers, can look at them collectively, and we can manage, we often have around $100,000 that we give out annually. And so we want to look at applications collectively throughout various grant cycles. So this first date will be really important. The first application cycle deadline is October 13th. So you have a month to think about your applications and what you might want to submit. And then the 2024 first grant cycle will go live January 2nd and will run through March 8th of next year. And then we'll have a second cycle in 2024 that will kick off in July and go through October. Dawn, that's a great question around do grants need to be for new initiatives? They ideally, I'd say priority is given to organizations that are launching new initiatives or expanding current initiatives. So if you're servicing a new school, they're not meant to just fund general operating budgets, but it could be an expansion, or if you're trying to market to a larger audience of students, there's flexibility there. But great question. Another great question, Louisa, if you received a spending role grant in the past, are you eligible for this year's grant cycle? Yes, you are. The committee does take into consideration if you've received funding in the past and at what level, especially as we start to get more applications than we can fund within that allotment. If that continues to grow, or we're getting a significant amount of applications that go over our threshold of what we can fund, then the committee will start to evaluate that and perhaps set some parameters. But at this time, you are eligible to apply for this year's cycle. Great question. We've also started to put together a number of resources for folks as they are thinking about their grant, applying for a grant, including a grant application template, a sample program budget, a FAQ guide to answer commonly asked questions around the process. And then we have a new application link that we will share it with this group, and will go on our website soon. And then for those that are awarded, there's an accountability component. So there is a brief accountability report that's required to be filled out so that we can just see the impact, community impact, and what the actual spend was at the end of the program term. So I'm just going to briefly show you the application. Hopefully most of you have seen it online. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. So this is a downloadable form, so you'll be able to see the application in its entirety. We don't currently have the function for you to be able to save your work, so I highly encourage you to build your application offline, have a copy of it, and then when you're ready to fully submit, you can copy and paste the information into the application. But you'll need to provide us a little bit of background on yourself and your organization. There'll be some questions to confirm you're compliant with the eligibility requirements, and including the funding priority areas. And then you'll be asked to summarize the need or idea to grow the game for tennis in which you're requesting funding, the amount that you are requesting from the section, as well as what would happen if we weren't able to provide you the full funding that you're requested. So if you applied for $25,000 and the spending rule committee was only able to approve 20 or 15, how would that impact your ability to move forward with the proposal? You'll share information about the population served by this proposal. So this can include the counties that you serve, the cities that you'll be serving, the general demographic that you'll be serving, and ultimately the communities that you're reaching through this new or expanded initiative. So you'll do population served as well as the geographical areas that you're serving. Then you'll provide a detailed description of the proposed project and activities. This should include any community partnerships that you're having, any major milestone dates of if it's launching a new summer program, we want to see when that program will start and when it will end. And any sort of major project outlines of what it will take tactically for you to successfully execute on and utilize the grant funding. Then it asks you about what strategies and activities will be employed to meet your goals and what are the outcomes that you're looking for in the impact of your grant initiative. And then we move into a question around, and this is important for the committee because there are times that we aren't able to support an initiative in perpetuity. And so, we want you to give us a sense around how the project, program, or initiative will be sustained after the conclusion of the grant period. So it's important for us that instances, particularly when a program is being launched, we don't want it to be a one-time, one and done. How can you maintain the momentum of the grant initiative and keep it going and keep kids and participants retained year over year? And then you'll talk about how you'll evaluate the success of the project. Is this the number of kids you've reached? If you're fundraising to do a facility infrastructure project, what are your metrics for success? And if there'll be any matching funds to support this project from another community partner, fundraising initiative, sponsorship, or other grants. And if you do have matching funds, there's an area for you to just give us a sense of where those are coming from and to what degree you have additional funding from other sources. And lastly, we want to know how you're going to mention and acknowledge USTA New England. We want people to know about the section and have them connected to USTA holistically. And so this is an area for you to let us know whether you'll put us as a partner on your website. You'd love for us to come out and support an event. There's a variety of creative ideas that you can explore and consider around how you might acknowledge the section as a funding source. And then we have some quick questions around, have you previously received funding from USTA or USTA New England? Like I said earlier, this doesn't preclude you from being considered, but it just lets us know that you've received some financial support from us or our national governing body in the past. And then we ask if you've attended any professional development opportunities within the section or nationally, whether it's Tennis Weekend, which is coming up in November. If you're not registered, highly encourage you to do so. If you're an NJTL and you attend the NJTL Impact Summit, again, this isn't a requirement, but it's valuable for us to get to engage with our grant awardees in person at various opportunities throughout the year. And then the last three things that you'll need to do is you'll need to upload a copy of your organization's operating budget, whether PDF or Excel. You'll need to provide a completed W-9 and then have a associated itemized list of expenses and revenues in connection to your proposal. And that takes me here to just showing you a very simple version of a budget template that can be utilized, some overview of how you can utilize this resource, and this gives you some structure if you don't already have a budget template that you use within your organization. All right, let me go back to our slides. So that tells you a little bit around the cycle of applications as well as the resources. If there's ever a resource that you are wanting to see or would be valuable, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone within the USTA New England office. We want to make these as sort of easy as possible while still getting the important information that the committee and the section needs in order to do a good and strong review of each application, and then be able to tell the amazing stories that each of our grassroots initiatives are having in terms of the impact that they're making with these grant-funded programs. All right, so to break this down into a timeline and process, the first step is to apply, submit your application, look through the grant resources, and submit a detailed application through the online form by any deadlines, and then identify or request a connection with USTA New England board or staff. So there is an area in the form where it asks you if you, which board member or staff member are you connected with. If you're not connected with anyone, that is not a hurdle to not apply. Please reach out, and we'll put this email in the chat and in the post recap email, volunteer@newengland.usta.com, and we will connect you with a contact that you can lean on as a mentor and resource to help you navigate USTA, and especially if you're newer in terms of having a relationship with the section. Then we'll have the review process. So you'll patiently wait to hear from USTA New England following the review. And then there are some cases where we do have some questions that come out of the committee's review. So we would communicate that to the point of contact. So there might be times where you need to submit a request for additional information. And then once it's gotten through its review process, you'll get notification around if your program was funded. You'll be asked to sign an award letter as well as review guidelines to receiving the funds. And then you'll start executing your initiatives or programs that are supported by your grant. And you'll keep in touch. So there's an accountability report that's required to be submitted after your grant initiative is complete. But we're also starting in 2024 quarterly check-ins amongst all of the grant awardees. And that will be a requirement for folks to join once a quarter, just to share, are there any challenges that you're facing? Is there anything the section can do to be helpful? And it's an opportunity to kind of share best practices and tackle any roadblocks that are coming your way. There's a question that came in around transformational grants or capacity building grants. So that can be a part of this community spending rule. I think that could sort of fall within the category of coaching and coach recruitment or player retention and engagement. So Matt, I would encourage you to just look through the application and apply. We don't have dedicated capacity building grants at the section level, but if there are some opportunities outside of the section level, if you're an NJTL, which Mabi will touch upon later. In the spirit of time, I'm going to just briefly share a couple applications that we've received as some background, so you can get a sense of what successful applications look like. Yeah. So we've had homeschool helpers. This is obviously not comprehensive, but they received $3,500. Through that funding, they served over 120 children at 3 locations. And a third of them were brand new players who were learning the sport for the first time, and it helped cultivate new relationships between the CTA and local facilities. Shout out to Thomas Dodd and Mabi. I think Thomas is on the call. The South Coast Wheelchair Tennis Foundation. Mabi, I love the emojis. Mabi, do you want to, putting you on the spot, but you were such a crucial part of this relationship. Do you want to touch upon the impact here?
I'm happy to. Thank you, Lindsay. And Thomas, you get a huge shout out from all of us. The All-Comers Training was truly an inclusive program over the course of 3 days. And the biggest takeaway in providing the funding for this program is that we created bonding experiences that were multi-generational during the training. We now have a great connection to the club that hosted us at Citadel and their team. And then internally, it was incredible to see our team from USTA New England come out and volunteer for the 3 days. So please, if you want to connect with us over any type of wheelchair programming, let me know. I would love to work with all of you. Thanks, Lindsay.
And thank you, Thomas. And then I think I saw Marguerite's name as well. Team Fame, they applied for funding to help renovate the second floor of their learning center. This allowed them to expand their tennis enrichment programs, which in return allowed them to serve more youth and increase the retention of their current students. And then the City of Central Falls, while this is still very much in flux, they received funding to help build tennis courts in their community. They were the only municipality in Rhode Island without a tennis court. Given the pandemic, it's been a little bit of a lengthy process, but they broke ground on the city's new tennis courts that are going to be designed to expose more inner city youth to the sport of tennis. And they're collaborating with the section, Progreso Latino, and other local partners. And when you look at that community, it has the potential impact to serve over 20,000 people. So this is just a really brief sampling of the type of applications that the committee has supported in the past. So hopefully this inspires some ideas for you to think about and ultimately apply for. Now I'm going to pitch it to Shauna, who will share more information around the section scholarships.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I'm going to touch upon the scholarships that we have that we provide under the junior competition umbrella at USTA New England. Most importantly, I wanted to touch upon the Learn to Play scholarship, which is new for 2023. It was initiated starting back in January, and that's really meant to be awarded to brand new aspiring players who have a interest and want to gain their first taste of the game, but maybe don't have the financial means to do so. So it's really geared toward players from 8 to 18, and it's awarded up to $250. And whether you're a 10-year-old who's looking to get involved in a local park and rec, someone who wants to, a high school player, I should say, who wants to get involved in junior team tennis, or who wants to try a tournament for the first time, the goal of the scholarship is really to expose players to opportunities that they have available to them throughout the entire ecosystem. It could even mean having a player go and try a tennis clinic at their local club. So it is a wide variety of opportunity that's available through this scholarship, and we're really excited because it is the first time that we've done something like this. So we've had a few players come through the pipeline, and we're hoping to really expand that over the next few months. The second that I wanted to touch upon would be the reduced entry fee program. And this is really tailored toward players who want to be involved in the tournament space. We are the only section of USTA who utilizes a scholarship to this degree. And so it's really meant to be an opportunity to assist players who want to get their taste into tournaments, but maybe do not have the financial means to do so. So what happens is a player is accepted into the program, and then from there, there are designated tournaments throughout all of New England where those players then pay only half of the entry fee. And then USTA New England covers the remaining cost. And then last but not least, the player development support grants, which are really geared toward our players who have the opportunity to represent New England at a national level. We realize that playing at any level of tournament or program can be a hefty cost, but especially on the national championship side. So we have allowed players who have the opportunity to represent New England at national level 1s, level 2s, ITF tournaments to apply for grant funding that can be helped, that can be put toward travel, hotel, etc., to get to those national championships.
Thanks, Shauna.
Of course.
We'll keep taking questions in the chat if they come up. We just have one or two more slides to go through, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So now we want to talk a little bit around national funding opportunities that exist within the USTA. This encompasses what's available currently, but I want to make mention that there are sometimes other grant opportunities that that open up in generally the first quarter. So for example, we had nationally a wheelchair and adaptive grant that was available earlier this year. I believe maybe it closed in Q1 or early in Q2. So I just encourage you to keep checking the website and seeing if opportunities open up. We do our best to try to communicate out to our member organizations, CTAs and NJTLs when those opportunities become available, but definitely be on the lookout. So at this time, there are currently 3 main national funding buckets. The first being tennis venue services. This is really focused for individuals and organizations that are looking to renovate, refurbish, or do new builds in terms of their tennis facility. It's a wide range of tier levels that you can be eligible for. So I encourage you to use the QR code and follow the link for more information. But for basic improvements, the grant funding that's available is up to $5,000. That's if you wanted to put windscreens available or benches, lighting. And then it ranges depending on the number of courts and refurbishment versus new construction. But you can apply for anywhere between $5,000 and $55,000 for resurfacing or new construction, as well as receive a ton of complimentary technical services and advisory services from the National Tennis Venue Services team. There's an asterisk there because there are additional funds available or may be available for indoor projects. There's not a set amount for that, but you can email facilities@ust.com for more information. But highly encourage anyone that's trying to explore or maybe you play at a high school or utilize high school courts or park and rec courts that maybe you're looking a little shabby. I highly encourage you to communicate these types of opportunities to decision makers in those areas, because especially if you're outside of the USTA ecosystem, there may not be a strong awareness on the funding allotment available here, as well as the technical services that the USTA provides. And then in connection with tennis venue services, they have a collegiate community hub grant. This is up to $10,000. So this is specifically geared towards colleges and universities that have tennis courts and are able to publicly program them for the good portion of the year. So there's more information through that QR code. So if you are connected with a university or college that you have access to, but perhaps would like more access to, sometimes funding dollars can make a difference in terms of unlocking more opportunity at some of those facilities. And now I'm going to pitch it to Mabi to share a little bit more around the USTA Foundation grants.
Thanks, Lindsey. So for those of you that are here from the NJTL network, this might sound a little bit redundant, but I need to share with the rest of the group that in order to qualify for the USTA Foundation grant opportunities, you must be an NJTL chapter registered with the foundation, the USTA Foundation network. There are very few requirements for that, but they must be met. The top 3 things to keep in mind is that an NJTL, a National Junior Tennis and Learning Chapter, must service under-resourced and underrepresented youth. The program has to be offered at no cost or very low cost to the community that is being served. And it must be an unincorporated entity or partnered with an unincorporated entity. The exciting news this year is that right now the foundation is rolling out in October a capacity building grant opportunity. And so please be on the lookout for the newsletter coming out from the USDA Foundation. October is when it will be rolled out. For those of you that are not familiar with the capacity building program, it is a way for the USDA Foundation to help NJTL chapters really learn to grow in a very sustainable way, with lots of resources from the USDA Foundation and throughout the USDA family. The other funding opportunity right now, and that hopefully most of you have seen rolled out just before the US Open, is the tennis court resurfacing. There are $3 million set aside for NJTLs that need courts resurfaced this year. So please tap into those resources. If you have any questions regarding the USDA Foundation grant or how to register as an NJTL, please contact me. I will be happy to walk with you through the process. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mavi. Shauna, you have a couple questions in the chat. Do you want to tackle those live?
Absolutely. So for the player development grants, what typically happens is we look at in terms of cycle, we look at the grants that are submitted for the coming months every Monday. So it's not a retroactive review. And then for the ITFs outside of the US, the only ITF that we do currently support would be under the Orange Bowl umbrella.
Thank you, Shauna.
Of course.
All right, I know we've been taking questions in the chat. Happy if any folks want to unmute. I do want to give a shout out and thank you to Joanna and Lance, two state association presidents, for joining on the call. Joanna is from Vermont. Lance is the president for Eastern Mass. So thank you for supporting community organizations in your area. Tara.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Oh, no problem. Well, you're welcome to hop off. Shauna, Mavi, and I will stick on for another few minutes. But if you leave today and you end up having a question, don't hesitate to reach out to, and I'll put this in the inbox, volunteer@newengland.usta.com. I really encourage you all to think about an initiative that you've been dreaming up and consider applying by the October 13th deadline. And be sure to connect with the state association funding opportunities in your area. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. It doesn't seem like we have much questions. But like I said, we're always available if you do following this call. So thank you again. Keep doing the great work that you're doing out on the tennis courts in New England.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.